So in this segment, we're going to be giving a Brexit update, and we're going to be talking about John Major basically savaging Brexiteers, and I'm all for that. And John Major's absolutely correct in most of the things that he said. So let's talk about this first. So with the new Biden administration, if Biden, if there's no tomfoolery, Biden becomes president, and then what that means is it's going to be very difficult for us to get a US deal, especially if Ireland's thrown under the bus. And so now we've got these jokers come out of the woodwork saying that we don't need a deal with the US. When we were in the EU, we traded on WTO terms. If we do so now, there's no difference. He's actually lying. That's not actually the case, and that's echoed by this douchebag here saying that we don't need a US deal. But the whole point of this whole Brexit thing was we can do our own deals, right? Who can do deals with? So if we actually look at the top economies. Let's have a look, right? So countries by GDP: United States, no deal with them. China, potentially, probably not going to get a deal with them. Japan, got a deal with them, but that's the same deal as the EU. Germany, if we go down a no deal route, no deal with them. India, no deal with them. Oh God, India have overtaken us. Okay, no deal with them. The UK, that's fine. France, no deal with them. Italy, no deal with them. Brazil, no deal with them, especially when the EU has actually agreed a deal with Mercosur, which is a lot of the Latin American countries. So the EU actually have a deal with them. We don't. Canada, no deal with them. That deal's been stolen. We'll talk about that. Russia, no deal with them. South Korea, I don't think we might have the EU deal with them. Spain, no deal with them. Australia, no deal with them. Mexico, no deal with them. Indonesia, no deal with them. The EU does have a deal with Indonesia, so potentially we could get one. Netherlands, no deal with them. Saudi Arabia, no deal with them. Turkey, no deal with them. But I think we are working on that one. And Switzerland, we may get a deal from. So for the top 20 economies, not looking likely we're going to get an actual deal. Going back to here, so if we screw around and do the internal market nonsense, we ain't going to get a deal. So if we debunk the US nonsense here, what you can see is the EU has a load of bilateral agreements with the US. What that means is typically they might lower tariffs on certain things together, or they might say, look, we're going to eliminate tariffs on 100 million worth of these products, and then the EU say, okay, we're going to take off 100 million tariffs worth on these products. That's what this is from the US Office of the US Trade Representative. So if we look here, on August 21st, 2020, the United States Trade Representative, what a name that is, Robert, and then EU Trade Commissioner Phil Hogan announced that the United States and the EU had agreed a package of tariff reductions, which will increase market access for hundreds of millions of dollars in US and EU exports. These tariff reductions would be first negotiated in bilateral reductions. So these aren't on WTO terms; they're bilateral. So here, douchebag, if you ever watch this video, it's bilateral. That is partially an agreement, not a massive. It's kind of a formal agreement, not a trade deal though. And if you look here, under the agreement, the EU will eliminate tariffs on imports of US live and frozen lobster products. US exports of these products to the EU were over $111 million dollars in 2017. The EU will eliminate these tariffs on most favored nations basis. That's WTO terms there, most favored nation status basis. So what that means is, say the EU want 40% tariff on lobsters. That means all nations that the EU doesn't have any agreements with, bilateral or free trade, means that any imports of lobster will have to be on a 40% tariff. And so by bypassing the most favored nations thing, what that means is the US get lower or no tariffs on lobsters, depending on quotas and other things. The EU tariffs will be eliminated for a period of 5 years, and the European Commission will seek to make the tariff changes permanent. The US will reduce by 50% its tariffs on certain products exported by the EU worth an average annual trade value of $160 million, including certain prepared meals, including crystal glassware, surface preparations, propellant, powder, cigarette lighters, and lighter parts. So what you can see from this bilateral agreement is it's not exactly the same products. What they're saying is, look, our lobster trade with you is about worth $111 million. Your stuff here, glass and all that stuff, is worth roughly this amount. We want you to cut tariffs here, and we'll cut tariffs here. It's a bilateral agreement. So this argument here, no, is stupid. Or misinformed. And if you look here, this is a regular practice in the WTO. So what's it called, regional trade agreements Over the years, RTAs have not only increased in number, but also in depth and complexity. WTO members and the Secretariat work gathered information on RTAs. These are based around things like bilateral agreements, and it's a genuine thing. That should not be there. It's a mess. If we talk about what John Major said, so just to talk a bit about here, we talked about the US deal not looking likely. We've talked about bilateral agreements and how the US doesn't strictly trade on WTO terms, and it's not clear if we'll get those bilateral agreements, because you can see the sheer numbers here: 110 million, 160 million. How much do we trade with the US, and where are those tariffs going to come from? How much is that worth to the US? And that's the point. So if we look at this thread from Antonello Guerrera about what John Major said, this is John Major's really pulling out the big guns here. So John Major: complacency and nostalgia are the route to national decline. Correct, absolutely. We are no longer a great power. I think we are still a great power. We will never be so again. I think we're not a superpower. We're not big boss. That's what we're not. We, in a world of nearly 8 billion, well under 1% are British. We are a top second ranked power, which is true. We are a top second ranked power. If you think about the US and China being the world superpowers, and potentially Russia in the mix, we're not one of those three. We're below them. So John Major: our hefty international influence rested on our history and reputation, but rested on our EU and close alliance with the US. It also rested on our colonial past and our ability to just bomb the crap out of you if you're a weaker power. Look at Iraq. Suddenly we are no longer an irreplaceable bridge between Europe and America. We are now less relevant to both of them. Absolutely correct. We are less relevant to them. I do find it surprising that in the midst of the COVID crisis, the government appears to be fostering disputes with the judiciary, the civil service upon whose help the government depends, and the BBC, still the most respected broadcaster on the planet. I disagree with that. I don't think we are. I don't think the BBC is anymore. I couldn't tell you who is, but the BBC isn't. Brexit divided England and Wales from Scotland and Northern Ireland. It divided political parties and families, the young and the elders, business and trade unions, and friend from friend. As its full impact becomes apparent in the new year, old wounds may reopen, and people taking victory laps and people saying, well, this is not the Brexit I voted for. I'm sorry, it is. There is no consensus on Brexit, and there never has been. Correct. It was a bitterly divisive policy and uncorked populism that may be difficult to quell. What more can you say about that? The referendum debate was unlike any I've known before. Emotion overcame reality. Nostalgia, all that stuff. Overcame. We can be a superpower in the world again. We can take back. Control over these things like fishing, which we sold off the quotas to immigration, which we always had control over. Fiction defeated fact and fostered belief in a past that never was boosting enthusiasm for a future that never will be. In that mode of politics takes root, it will kill all respect in our system of government. Absolutely correct. In the Brexit referendum, Britons voted to leave the EU. I have never hidden my views, nor have I changed it. To my mind, I am no starry-eyed European. Brexit is the worst foreign policy decision in my lifetime. Brexit was sold to our electors on false premises, and I think Brexit would be a worse decision than the Iraq War, and the Iraq War was such one of the stupidest things I've ever seen, one of the stupidest decisions I've ever seen made, and I think Brexit is worse than that for a multitude of reasons, which we'll go into another video because this one's going to be long. Free speech for those who support remaining in the EU came at a price. They were pilloried as Ramonas. Judges denounced as enemies of the people. That was that guy James Slack. He's Boris's new communications director. Opponents of Brexit were cowed. It was shameful. No democracy should find itself in a position. Brexit was sold to the nation as a win-win. It is not. We were promised we would stay in the single market. We have not. We were told trade with the EU would be frictionless. It will not be. John Major: we were promised we would save billions in payments to the European Union. A bus was driven around the country telling us so. Brexit is costing billions, not saving them. Absolutely correct. John Major: more recently, and for the first time in our long history, ministers have proposed legislation giving them powers to break the law. That's about the internal market bill. This is a slippery slope down no democratic government should ever travel. It was claimed Brexit wouldn't increase support for Scottish independence or a united Ireland. It has. Absolutely it has. It defies logic that intelligent men and women making such extravagant promises did not know they were undeliverable, and yet they continue to make them. It was politics, it was campaigning, it was for a cause, it was also unforgivable. If that is how we Britain are going to conduct our public affairs, then not only will our politics truly fail into a bad place, but our word as a nation will no longer be trusted. And trust is such a hard thing to foster, but once it's broken, it's very difficult to rebuild, and that's the path we're going down. Trade has always been the lifeblood of our prosperity. We were promised a comprehensive trade deal with the EU. We were told this will be the easiest deal in history because we hold all the cards, Michael Gove. Apparently not. John Major, as the politics changed, the promises were ditched. We can now look forward to flimsy, bare-bones Brexit deal or no deal at all. And this is a wretched betrayal of what our electors were led to believe. Brexit is no friend of free trade with Europe. It may set up new tariff barriers and other consequences. These cost complexities are certain legacy of Brexit. This is a result of our negotiating failure, and it is a failure. There is no Australia deal. It is a fantasy, a euphemism for no deal at all, and the government should say so. What they did with the saying Australia deal was people didn't like the idea of no deal, so what they do in their focus groups is they try and find something that people do like, and Australia deal was that. So it is important we negotiate a more comprehensive relationship with the EU. We should recognise that EU nations are bound with ourselves in ties of common interest, history and future destiny, also trade. To ignore this would be a dereliction of national interests. The Westminster government could agree for an independence referendum to take place on the basis of 2 referenda, something that what's his name, Rees-Mogg has talked about in the past, and you could have 2 referendums. The first vote upon principle of negotiations and the second upon outcome of them. That's about Scotland. The purpose of the second referendum would be about Scottish electors. I don't think anymore. He talks a bit more about the internal market bit was unprecedented in all our history for good reason. It's damaged our reputation around the world. Lawyers everywhere are incredulous that the UK, the cradle of the rule of law, not sure about that one, Chief, could give themselves the power to break the law. It is essential we remain a united kingdom and reinforce the values that have built our reputation. If we cannot again be a great power, we can be a great example. We cannot compel, we can influence. So that's essentially, he's talking more about soft power there than hard power. John Major, I will settle for a land that is united and prosperous, which rises above challenges as it has so often in the past, whose word is trusted both near and far, and whose people are seen to be decent, fair and compassionate. In every corner of the United Kingdom that remains the distinctive heartbeat, and it is one I will hope will always prevail. Thank you. And so these are from a speech that he did November 9th, so it's a few days ago. Shouts out to Antonio Guerrero, because I did not know. And you got some douchebags here, tweeting. And yeah, he's absolutely correct. I don't agree with everything. I think there's a lot of bluster and a bit of nationalistic pride in there. But yeah, absolutely, he's correct for the most part. We're not going to be a world superpower anymore, and all we've done is hasten our demise. And we go to our final article on this Brexit update. Justin Trudeau saying the UK's lack of negotiating practice could delay a Canada trade deal. So I don't know if this is him playing games trying to get us to hurry up a bit. But yeah. So he's saying Canada could easily negotiate a post-Brexit deal with the UK, Justin Trudeau said, but he warned that talks could be delayed because British negotiators are so out of practice. Speaking at an online event hosted by the Financial Times, the Canadian Prime Minister said he remained upbeat about the prospect of a trade deal between the two countries before the end of the year. We know how to negotiate trade deals, said Trudeau, alluding to a string of recent past deals sealed by Canada. The UK hasn't had to negotiate deals in the past few decades. Any barrier to an agreement was likely to come from the UK as its negotiators juggle talks with multiple nations, obviously with the US, the EU, Japan, South Korea, and multiple other countries. What else has he said here? He's talking about a bandwidth problem. So basically saying that we don't have the capacity to do it. There's not much more important here. Trade with Canada is worth nearly £17.4 billion. According to government figures, about 700 UK-based firms have a presence in Canada, and 1,100 businesses in the UK are owned or controlled by Canadians. The company that owns Jammy Dodgers is also owned by Canadians as well. The Ontario Teachers Pension Fund, I think it is. It's great. Trudeau's government has signed a number of large trade deals in the past, in addition to joining the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, I think that's TPP, with 10 other Pacific nations, blah 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 blah. And so what he's saying is we don't have the capacity to do all these trade deals. We're not the person we thought we were. Let's put it that way. And yeah, all these Brexiteers, all the lies falling apart. Now we don't need a US trade deal. And if you look at this, we're not gonna have a trade deal with most of the top dons in the world. So I'm gonna leave it there. So Brexit update. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Shouts out Dano. And shouts out the man from Hamburg, Yui, I think how you pronounce his name, and everyone else who watches, these Brexit videos specifically and all my other ones. Shouts out to you guys. So I'm gonna leave it there. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.